The Facility 19 incident. The following is a typed copy from the written journal of Agent 1. I have searched and interviewed anyone who with even the most tenuous connection to the Facility 19 incident. The accounts and statements range from frightening revelations to scattered hearsay. Please note, I have redacted all names from this copy. Entry 1, February 1st, 1928. I feel that I must make this record, if not for my own sanity, failing that, at least to act as a warning to others. What I have written down is the direst of accounts as I witnessed them. Even now, 2 years since what happened, my hands still shake thinking about it. Coffee is the only thing that keeps me awake, and strong liquor is all that can make me sleep. I must document that what happened. I will attempt to describe what transpired, at least what I could understand of that dark and nightmarish day at Facility 19. I was posted to Facility 19 6 years ago, fresh from Yale and with a keen interest in the esoteric. I studied in all of my spare time at the Miskatonic University Library. It was there I made steady progress in studying that of the supernatural and demonology. Not an easy task, given that the limited and restricted books were often written in Greek, Arabic, or even the long-dead language of Relayan. I was assigned as a senior officer to a new special federal paranormal agency, having just been set up by the White House. The president himself had a keen interest in defending the nation and even the world against any potential threat from the beyond. From all across the nation, reports have been passed over the desks of investigators and federal authorities. Most of these could be explained away as local legend and fantasies dreamed up by unstable minds. However, some of the reports were more credible, physical evidence and even on occasion, blurred photographs. A strange spate of killings all over the United States, seemingly without pattern. But always, if any witnesses had been present, the statement was the same. Demons, hell beasts, monsters. Now, with federal backing and considerable support from government agencies, we could start to gather all the data. Within a few weeks, we had mapped out the sightings and accounts in the last year. A serious disturbance in an opera house, then an unidentified Leviathan monster on a beach in California had all the hallmarks of this seemingly random killing spree. We set to work, attempting to estimate when or where the next incursion would take place. I was reluctant to rely on mystics, as they are unreliable and alarmingly vague on detail. It was possible to set up rituals to encourage visitation by those who dwell beyond, but that would be an absolute last-case scenario. I was not eager to drag the attention of these creatures without first knowing what we are dealing with. At Facility 19, we were given a huge labyrinth of old holding cells, offices, storerooms, and a basement. This place was once a police station with attached jail, long since passed into disuse. It served our team well. We worked hard on equipment and scientific methods to aid our mission. Any and all strange occurrences from the nation would be passed through to my team. We would assess and act on these scraps of information. Entry 2, February 6th, 1928. Breakthrough, an honest-to-goodness breakthrough. Doctor, classified, has potentially solved one problem. His new detection machine can, if close enough, detect a disturbance in the fabric of our plane of existence. This clever machine was built in our laboratory and powered by the newest zinc-carbon batteries. I don't entirely understand how it functions, but when we visited all of the confirmed sites of interest, this device gave positive readings. The doctor thinks it would react in a more extreme way just before these creatures would transverse into our world. Using this machine and the maps we had made, the team and I came up with a sort of pattern. Tonight, we would test the hypothesis and set out a grid search. Local law officers have been informed that we are conducting an experiment. I doubt they could comprehend even a fraction of our real mission, so I made sure to keep details vague. A partial success, we managed to find an incursion site in the city. It was an unassuming alleyway in the Mercantile District, with only one entrance and exit. We found no sign of our quarry, but the detector machine was buzzing wildly. Perhaps we were too late, but there was no sign of any victims either. Another fruitless night. All this endeavour for nothing. Dr. Classified even managed to rig up 2 more detector machines. He was theorising of a much larger unit that could be moved on a truck. This would have better range and with it enough operators using the smaller units. We could make a range and detection grid. If any incursions happened in the city, we could quickly intercede. All of this was merely a theory. So far, we had not managed to find anything, only previously used incursion sites. We diligently mapped and recorded these to help with our search. Entry 3, February 7th, 1928. Dumb luck? Astral alignment? We don't know. A few short days after our failed detection night, I was filling in paperwork. Agent 2 sat opposite me. She was a bright young woman. I admired her excellent and keen intelligence. Agent 2 was an Ivy League graduate. Her degree specialized in ancient language and pictographs. She flipped through her notebooks and puzzled over our latest failed detection. "It's tonight," she jumped. "Look, it all makes sense." I was perplexed at her claim. I took her offered notebook. The endless scribbles and undecipherable ancient writings made no sense to me. "We got the location the other night. This is where the incursion will happen. But the stars need to be correct. The barrier to our world needs to be thinned," she went on. I continued to be dumbfounded. I stood up, gathered my hat and coat. I told her to prepare the detector and bring the new weapons Mr. Classified had been working on. If these creatures were indeed killers from the other side, we could not be sure if our firearms would be enough to kill them. Entry 4, February 11, 1928. Back at the alley we visited the other night, everything was still. No light shone from windows, as closing time was some 6 hours ago. The occasional goods vehicle trundled along the far-off city roads. Most of the other agents were back at the facility. Myself equipped with Mr. Classified, newly designed electric gun, and Agent 2 with the latest toxin darts loaded into an M1903 rifle. The newly made electric gun was a modern marvel. Not elegant design or easy to use, this weapon was battery-powered and discharged an incredible arc of high-voltage power. Hefted on my back was the bulky detector. It made no sound whatsoever. Agent 2 looked determined to prove her theory. We waited. Nothing. I was set to urge my colleague to give up on the night when the machine ticked. It ticked, then buzzed, then emitted a whining tone. That last tone was a new sound. Was it supposed to do that? A breeze kicked up from nowhere. The air became heavy and laden with ozone. The distinct and odious smell of sulphur filled our noses. Then, in the wall, a hellish rent opened like a swirling vortex. I risked a glance at Agent 2. She was smiling. I could not look at the opening for long. Its iridescent red and orange depths caused my head to ache. Through this otherworldly opening, 2 beings hopped. They almost seemed to manifest from the depths of the portal. I did not manage to get a good look at these figures, as the hellish light made them only appear as blighted silhouettes. One thing I could see was the eyes. These creatures had shining evil yellow eyes. As the hell gate started to close, the 2 beings chittered at one another. The language was a series of chirps and screeches, like 2 asylum madmen giggling and screaming at one another. I jumped as Agent 2 fired her rifle, the loud report spurring me into action. I squeezed the trigger of the electric gun. The entire alley lit up with the staccato burst of lightning. There, in the light afforded by this powerful weapon, I caught my first good look at the creatures from hell. Entry 5, February 12th, 1928. As the light returned to normal and my eyesight adjusted back from the blinding lightning, we seen 2 heaps on the alley floor. I approached cautiously, ready to deliver another blast if they moved. Both creatures lay crumpled on the floor. These wicked-looking things of the underworld had deep red skin and twisted horns jutting from the tops of their heads. Although similar, these demons, for want of a better word, looked different from each other. One appeared to have goat's legs and the other not. Their skin was not uniformly red. Patches and spots of white covered the faces and necks. Both sprouted long barbed tails from the lower back. Surprisingly, the creatures wore garments. To my eyes, these looked like some mockery of human clothing made to fit the smaller frames of the demons. Was this an attempt at a disguise, to blend in with mankind as they killed their prey? Agent 2 used a nearby public phone to call more agents and requested a large animal cage from the city zoo. We did not want to take any chances. We could not even be sure these creatures were dead. Within the hour, we had both specimens back to Facility 19. The demons were not dead. Far from it. The lightning gun had worked to render them unconscious, but that was all. We could not tell if the toxic dart had any effect, as the powerful electric weapon had caught both the demons in its wide arc. Our 2 guests were secured on operating tables in the starkly lit basement of the facility. Under the cold, buzzing lights, the creatures could be seen fully. The red skin I had previously noted, but its texture was almost scaly, yet with a leathery toughness. Lipless mouths filled with fangs, still their eyes glowed with a sickly yellow light. Small red irises surrounded empty black pupils. They occasionally struggled at the steel clamps that held them to the tables. The creatures' tails were arrested with heavy restraints for large zoo animals. What our prisoners carried were all twisted parodies of human guns and knives. These weapons proved extremely hot to touch. Specialized asbestos gloves were brought in to handle them. The weapons sported wicked-looking glyphs and obscene demonic writing. It was as though everything these creatures used, carried and wore mirrored our own human trappings. Agent 2 was struck with the idea of talking to them. She tried speaking English, Greek, Latin and Aramaic. Each time the demons chittered and then gave mocking mimic to her words. Like parrots, they just repeated what she said. In a leap of logic, she tried to mimic one of the creature's shorter chitters. That was met with stone silence from them. She grinned back at me as the creatures looked confused, but I was not remotely impressed. I wanted these things dead, or at the very least incapacitated beyond all doubt. I decided to get us both away and observe from a secure safe room we had set up. It was a sturdy room that was formerly a guard station. Its large window was reinforced with steel mesh. The room was a small sanctuary. We had both noticed that prolonged exposure to the demonic language was causing physical side effects. My ears would ring occasionally, and I felt nauseous on more than one occasion. "Can you believe that?" she asked me. "I made contact," Agent 2 exclaimed. I asked her what she thought she said. The bigger one always adds a little chitter that is the same when talking to the little goat-legged one. She grinned. I copied that. It may be the creature's name. "Are you sure?" "Not really. I want to go to the studio across town and ask about those new recording devices." She looked excited, "and I must see if we can find some film cameras." I did not want any of this. Those modern mediums of recording could lead to serious issues. The sounds the creatures made already caused issues with my ears. Photographs would have to suffice. We already had used several rolls of V118 film. I wanted these things on ice as soon as possible, then locked away from all but the topmost experts forever. Entry 6, February 19th, 1928. It was decided the next day to euthanize the creatures with chlorine gas. I was not entirely sure if this would kill the entities, but its heavier-than-air properties would confine it to the basement and allow easier cleanup. The doses we requested would take all morning to arrive from the chemical plant across the city. If this did not kill the creatures, we planned to send for powerful generators and use electrocution. Their vulnerability to high voltage was proven, but the time and resources needed to get the massive generators to us was significant. As the staff prepared to seal off the basement, the door alarm sounded. I rushed to the telephone on the wall and rang the main office. It was answered by one of the agents. Then the man's dying screams echoed down the phone. The loud noise made me jump. What was happening upstairs? Gunfire, the unmistakable echo of gunfire from the floors above. Including Agent 2 and myself, we had 32 personnel in the building. Who would be mad enough to risk entering this facility? A chill rode up my spine as I looked round at our guests. They both chittered excitedly. No, this was not possible. More demons? Some sort of rescue attempt? I rushed across the room to the stairs, made sure to give the tables a wide berth. I had to get to the armory and the electric gun inside. I ordered the 3 remaining staff to hold this door and make sure nothing got through. If all else failed, they were to initiate lockdown procedure. As I rounded the corner on the first floor, the bloodied bodies of 5 agents scattered the floor. All had brutal rents in their flesh, and one was covered in deep bite marks. The agents' revolvers lay scattered and useless on the floor. What monsters had made these wounds? More importantly, where were they now? I guess they were searching the entire building for their allies. I summoned up my courage and sprinted past the bodies. Much to my relief, Agent 2 was already in the armory. She had already loaded some weapons and held the electric gun disappointedly. "The damn electric gun will not charge. Its batteries look burned out," she grumbled. That was a setback. We would have to manage with more basic weapons. I did not want to tell her about what I had seen in the hallway. I grabbed a .45 automatic and handed it to Agent 2. She took the weapon and made it ready. The only other gun we had that might be enough firepower was a M97 trench gun, surplus issue from the last war. Myself and Agent 2 made our way back to the basement, stepping over the bodies of our colleagues. Whatever killed these men did so with utter destructive abandon. Limbs and heads torn from bodies, gore slicked the walls. What have we unleashed on the world? We needed to stop this madness. As we descended to the basement, we seen all the agents were dead. The 2 demons were released from the table. Standing with them was another small demon clutching a huge twisted battle axe. That may explain some of the more egregious wounds on our colleagues. Above them loomed a huge, hideous thing. It looked part man and part wolf. Its snarling maw dripped blood and clawed hands clasped a baroque-bound tome. The wolf thing and the demons all looked up as we entered the door. I blasted them with the trench gun as I tried to make it to the secure room. Agent 2 fired her pistol and she ran with me. It was hard to say if any of our shots found their mark. Our demonic guests jumped and leaped about the room erratically. Entry 7, March 1st, 1928. Cornered, the secure room was just that. The heavy reinforced doors and walls made this a small pillbox. Agent 2 activated the lockdown button. A small electrically controlled fuse lit, causing a chain reaction on all exterior doors. Explosive bolts detonated and locked the whole building secure. Only through mechanical cranks could the main doors be opened, and only myself and a few, now dead agents, had the keys to the tools needed. Being formerly a police station and jail, the windows were heavily barred anyway. More importantly, this activated a direct buzzer to the nearby federal buildings. In the event of a flashing red light under the F-19 connection at the telephone exchange, the operator would call the closest military base. The base commander would then read the top-secret orders from his safe, prepared for this coded call. These orders would direct him to mobilize his on-base forces and make at all speed to Facility 19 and render whatever assistance he could. Fort Bartlett, the closest military base, is an anti-aircraft training school. These National Guard forces were well equipped with the latest weapons and would in theory be able to deploy our location within an hour or 2. That was a long time to be trapped here with these hellish creatures. I knew this room was secure, but for how long? Even if the military could make it to us, they might spend some time making a secure perimeter around the building before attempting entry. "Let me try and negotiate with them," Agent 2 pleaded. I was not convinced. We had very limited ammunition, and so, from what glimpses we had of the demons, it looked as though they were just chittering to each other. The larger wolf creature snarled in a low growl to them. They had all taken cover behind the heavy, and now upturned steel operating tables, having made no attempt to escape to the stairs. It was almost like they were lost or unsure of what steps to take next. Why do they not try to escape? The thought kept coming to me. I shared it with Agent 2. She shrugged, but still postulated that the stellar conditions were not right for them to leave via a hellgate. She stood with a .45 automatic pointed at the hidden creatures. "You cannot escape," she yelled over the creature chitters and growls. "The military will be here soon and destroy you all." In the back of my mind, I was not entirely sure what the orders in the Colonel's secret briefing would say, Perhaps in this kind of emergency they would just destroy the entire building rather than risk any more incursions. That would mean entombing us all under tons of rubble and debris. The demons suddenly fell silent, as though they understood her words. I was astonished. I thought they merely parroted our earlier attempts at communication. I was wrong. The air grew heavy, like the other night in the alley. Was the Hellgate going to open again and let our demonic prisoners escape? No, I was wrong about that. The detector machine in the secure room with us went haywire. It buzzed and whined erratically and then burned out. An almost hurricane-strength wind tore about the small room. From nowhere this violent gale scattered paperwork, flipped chairs and toppled desk lamps. The lights flickered and dimmed as though the power were drained away. The lights failed soon after, leaving only thin beams of dim daylight to stream into the basement from the tiny street-level windows. I glanced at Agent 2. Her shoulder-length hair whipped about in the wind, but she managed to keep standing. Then came the voice. I am unable and unwilling to record even the words spoken to me, but it pierced through my mind like an unstoppable black miasma that flooded my mind, body and soul. I can only assume Agent 2 felt it too. The words hammered in my skull. So powerful was this force my limbs would not function. It echoed, "Who dares threaten my impish plaything?" Entry 8, March 7th, 1928. This voice was not like the chittering demons or the hellish wolf creature. This was smooth as silk and undeniable. As much as I tried to resist hearing it, I could not. It reverberated through my mind and caused me to grit my teeth. I looked at Agent 2 to see if she was doing any better than me. She stood facing the creatures, her shoulders slumped and limbs twitching. I reached out to grab her and pull her down to cover. Before my hand grabbed her arm, she whipped round to face me. I recoiled. Her face was struck with a rictus grin, like all of her skin was stretched tightly over her features. Her eyes were wide open and black inker ran like tears down her cheeks. She reminded me of some demonic marionette, her actions jolting and unnatural. Her grinning smile was almost too wide and seemed impossible for a human to make. "What is the matter, demon hunter? Have you never seen a real demon before?" Agent 2 spoke. It was not her voice. It was the voice that echoed through my head moments ago. She was possessed. Whatever nightmare invaded my mind had obviously taken up inside her body. I stepped back from her in terror. What could I do? As one, all of the dead agents staggered up from the floor. Despite the savaged wounds, these broken dead men clambered up from the ground. They walked into the secure room and knelt at Agent 2's feet. I wanted to do something, but I was so utterly terrified I could barely even blink. On the floor around Agent 2, these reanimated dead men smeared unholy pictographs and symbols from their own blood. Agent 2 threw back her head and poured forth a great black torrent into the air. Out billowed thick, oily smoke like a river that had burst its banks. As the torrent came to an end, the animated bodies all fell to the floor, and Agent 2 fell backwards. My limbs responded to my mind, and I caught her before she fell back onto her head. The great mass of smoke swirled around the room. A deafening, wicked laughter boomed from the centre of the storm. Agent 2 shook violently, her eyes wide with terror. It was at least her looking at me and not the entity that took control of her body. The swirling wind grew larger. It darkened even the sunlight in the room. Glowing hellfire shone from within the cloud. It started to take a form. A huge and impossibly proportioned entity took shape, like a great glowing red quadrupedal hawk. Its winged forearms pressed to the floor as it loomed over us. A terrible beak opened to show a hellish maw of fangs and glowing red fire. In a blink, the smoke disappeared, almost drawn to a single point in the room. The low wall and window of the secure room was gone, leaving a gaping hole where the smoke once was. As the lights flickered on again, standing in the ruined gap stood a new creature, tall and slender. At best guess, this creature stood 9 or 10 feet tall at least. Its frightening face was unmistakably avian. Its slender taloned hands rested on slender hips. Great long, passerine legs jutted from its body. But most disturbing of all was the 4 glowing red eyes. These almond-shaped orbs shone brightly with hellish power and promise of unfathomable knowledge. The creature was dressed like a nobleman from a bygone age, with golden braids crossing its double-breasted tunic, a long red cape topped with an impressive ermine mantle. Upon the demon's head was a tall shako-like cap. A great golden crown wrapped around the tower of the hat and finished off this creature's regal look. I know now, after some great research afterward using the Liber Hades and the writings of the mad theologist Hasta van der Kamp, I was cowering before one of the terrible and mighty members of the Ars Goetia, the royalty of hell. These powerful denizens of the underworld held almost total control over vast legions of lesser demons. I looked over to the other creatures. They had moved and were all back to the far wall, seemingly in fear. They stood in abashed silence as their regal master walked away from me and toward them. I could not help but notice the tall creature's unearthly grace. It moved like a giant predatory bird stalking its prey. One of the smaller creatures tittered in its twisted language. The regal prince of hell silenced it with a look. His own words then filled the room, not loud, not harsh, but smooth and commanding. I could not understand the language, but it flowed out like a regal address. The language was not the guttural chitters and screeches of the lesser demons. It was as though the great prince was lecturing his wayward children. The lesser creatures stood quietly accepting their superior's admonishment. The slender and frightfully tall prince stopped and gently caressed one of the lesser demons' faces. It spoke again. This time sweet and almost musical sounds were uttered. Then, with a slight gesture from its terrible clawed hands, one of the horrific hell gates opened in the wall behind the demonic gathering. Clearly astrological alignment was not a concern for this most terrible prince of hell. The heat was unbelievably intense from the opening. All the perspiration on my face evaporated immediately. I likened the hell gate aperture to a huge blast furnace door being opened. The terrible wolf and two of the small demons entered the swirling maelstrom. The terrible prince bowed low and gathered up the last of the small demons. It cradled the smaller one with an almost loving care. Then, with a flash of distorted reality, they were gone. The portal was gone, leaving nothing behind to mark its or the demonic presence. Entry 9, March 16th, 1928. After a short time of unconsciousness, I woke to find Agent 2 sitting on the floor in total silence, her face an expressionless blank. This was obviously some kind of catatonia. I did not blame her. What she experienced would break most people's mind. I did my best to comfort her, but she was totally unresponsive. Her eyes barely blinked. Her breath was shallow and weak. Her cheeks looked drained of blood. Hair greyed as though all life had gone from her body. After some effort, I managed to hand-crank open the main locked doors at the front of the building. The outside streets were all too normal, the indifference of the public and their normal lives oblivious to what had happened in their midst. If they had witnessed what had transpired, it would have caused a mass hysteria. I carried Agent 2 outside. Closer concerned civilians gathered around us. It was not long before local police officers arrived to investigate rumours of muffled gunshots. In the local police station, I made a call to my superiors in Washington, and from there the whole building and the entire incident was locked down. I do not know if any military forces were mobilized. I was taken away by other federal officers, and I made my reports as best I could. I currently spend my time on convalescence leave. I don't believe I will ever be able to sleep without strong liquor. Even then, that only softens the nightmares. I made a formal report to the top brass at HQ, and I was relieved of my duties pending investigation. This concludes the excerpt from Agent 1's journal. The only survivor I found was the female Agent 2. She resides permanently in Arkham Asylum, suffering from the, as described, total catatonic shock. The doctors at the facility confirmed that she has no ability to speak, eat, or care for herself in any way. I asked all the questions about the Facility 19 incident. She was totally unresponsive in any way, and I left the institution to continue with other leads. After detailed analysis of the Facility 19 basement, I managed to translate the blood-smeared demonic writing. This took quite some time and study from multiple sources. The direct most translation into English would be STOLAS. Several times now I have attempted to join the letters and to utter the word aloud. On all occasions, been overcome with vile sickness and constricted vocal muscles. It would seem that the human vocal range is not able to utter this name. I advise none attempt as such. As for the location of Agent 1, he is still missing. The last anyone seen of him, he had stolen one of the agency's tracking devices and a revised and updated version of our electronic shock carbines. We are working with local authorities to try and find him before he can come to any harm. Report submitted by Agent 17, June 13th, 1928. Story by Daveco Films, read by John White, inspired by Helluva Boss and H.P. Lovecraft.